So when you're planting your vegetables, you pretty much have two options. You can either grow on the inside and then transplant, or then direct sow. So transplanting is good because you can see the growth, you know what's going into the ground, but whether they survive with the transplanting, you know, it's a bit hit and miss depending on the vegetable. Direct seeding is good because you can put everything right where it's going to grow, but one of the more annoying things about direct seeding is less than ideal germination, especially when you get to the smaller seeds. So this is a carrot bed, so if you've ever seen carrot seeds, they're incredibly small, and when you have to plant them, you put them into about 1/4 of an inch into the soil, and hopefully they'll germinate. Carrots are already very notorious about getting good germination rates, and when you sow like this in the early spring, you can hopefully kind of tell it's maybe a little moist here, but if you have a bed that's directly in the sun, you have dry soil on top. If you dig down, certainly you'll see a little moisture soil, but remember, with those small seeds, you're really in that upper layer of now the kind of dry, less moist soil on top, which means you have to keep watering. You got to maintain it, because in order for those seeds to germinate, they're essentially acting like popcorn seeds, where they're absorbing all that water. That daytime heat then causes that seed to explode with the absorption of that water, and then you get germination and growing. So you can either leave the beds kind of open and they'll dry out and you have to have more consistent watering throughout the day, or you can do other means, and how I do it with the silage tarp. So it doesn't matter what you use, it's essentially just a barrier that would go on top of this. So this bed is open during the day, I do water it, but for the most part I have a tarp that goes over it. So it's essentially a barrier to stop the water from evaporating from the bed, so it keeps it into a nice moist humid environment that then supports better germination. You don't want to use something that has black, so the other side of this is black. So I don't have black. I only keep black when the bed is not used, because that will increase the temperature in that bed incredibly much, that it will not support germination. So certainly seeds, those in the spring, are much more sensitive to soil temperature. So you don't want the soil too hot, but hot enough that would support that germination. So when you have it like this, this supports all the other seeds that you don't want, also known as weeds, sprouting and then dying because of that. But when you have it like this, all you are is just simply using it as a barrier to stop the water from evaporating, and giving it a little extra heat. So I don't have the soil thermometer to show you, but I'm assuming the soil temperature here is probably 45, 50, probably inside of there. It's probably closer to 80, so the seeds aren't gonna like that. So it's not that you need a tarp, you can use anything. I've seen people use cardboard, I've seen people use wood. It's essentially anything that can go on top to retain the water moisture in that very top layer of pretty much where the carrot seeds are sitting. You just hope for the best at that point. Just because you do have something on top of that doesn't necessarily mean you don't need to water. I still routinely water, not as much as maybe the other ones, kind of the open beds, but you still need to water pretty much every other day. That's kind of my technique to deal with the lower germination rates of some seeds. It's not 100% perfect, but it's certainly better than not using the tarp. So that's how we do this. So this bed has been going for about 7 days. So we don't have any germination, and that's simply because carrots, that's just the way they are. So it'll probably, in the next week or so, we'll start seeing all sorts of germination happening here. So that's how I do it. Highly recommend it when you're direct sowing it, having that secondary barrier to help with better germination rates. All right, so we're gonna do a quick update on the carrots. So this is about 5 weeks after we directly sowed. So obviously not too big on the growth, but that is the difficulty associated with carrots. You got to have patience associated with them. They are difficult to germinate and they tend to be a little slow growing, but as you get through the cooler parts of spring and the soil starts getting warmer, you'll start seeing these things grow. So we had put the black tarp over that. It was cooler at that time. We wanted to retain the moisture, and you can see Very good germination in a majority of the bed. So these are about 16 seeds per square foot. But you can also see some very bad germination. You see germination good in the front of the bed, so obviously either it got too warm there or the didn't get enough water, whatever it may be. So they can be a bit sensitive, and obviously something happened back there that stopped them from germinating. But you can see early on you can still get good direct germination. And my succession bed is over here, so this was about 3 weeks later. Not as much black tarp on it, but you can still see very good germination here. So I like the black tarp earlier on in the season, just to keep that soil bed as warm as possible. Doesn't mean that carrots will not germinate. They will still germinate at 30-degree temperatures, but at least a touch up to the 40s, 50s, 60s will help increase the chances of germination. So we'll let them keep going. This is just the way I do carrots. I use something on top of the beds to help with the germination, and I have good success rates directly sowing them. So hopefully it helps you.